Welcome to Property Report UK, the channel where we break down the biggest stories shaping the British housing market. From government policy to hidden legal traps buried in property contracts, our goal is simple: to explain what's really happening behind the headlines and what it means for homeowners, buyers, and investors across the country. Today's report focuses on a growing controversy that many homeowners never see coming until it's too late. It involves something called restrictive covenants, legal clauses quietly written into property deeds that can control what you do on land you supposedly own. And for thousands of hard-working tradespeople across the UK, these clauses are creating a shocking situation: people buying a freehold house, only to discover they can't even park their work van on their own driveway. To understand how this happens, imagine the following scenario. You've just finished a long day at work. Perhaps you're a plumber, an electrician, a builder, or a delivery driver, one of the countless people who keep the British economy running. After a demanding shift, you climb into your van and head home to the property you worked years to afford. It's a modern house on a new development. Clean streets, neat gardens, freshly built homes. You pull into your driveway, step out of the van, and look at the house you now own. The estate agent told you it was a freehold property, meaning you own not just the building but also the land it stands on. For generations in Britain, that idea has represented the ultimate security: your home, your rules. But a few weeks later, something unexpected happens. A formal letter arrives through your door. Not a utility bill, not council paperwork, but a legal notice from a management company responsible for overseeing the housing estate. The message is blunt. According to the terms written into your property's title deeds, parking a commercial vehicle on your driveway is not allowed. The van you use for work, the vehicle that pays your mortgage and supports your family, is considered a violation of the estate's rules. You are told to remove it immediately. If you fail to comply, the letter warns that the management company may pursue legal action to enforce the covenant. For many homeowners, this moment comes as a complete shock. After all, they believed they purchased a property with full ownership rights. Yet suddenly a private company appears to be telling them how their own driveway can be used. This situation is becoming increasingly common across modern housing developments in Britain, and the reason lies in the growing use of restrictive covenants. Historically, restrictive covenants served a practical purpose. Decades ago, landowners sometimes included clauses to prevent activities that might harm neighboring properties, for example, stopping someone from building a noisy factory in the middle of a quiet village. These agreements were designed to protect communities and maintain sensible land use. However, over the past 20 years, the role of restrictive covenants has evolved dramatically. Large property developers building new housing estates often include extensive lists of restrictions within the legal documents attached to each property. These clauses can cover everything from changes to the exterior of a house to the type of vehicles allowed to be parked on the property. In many cases, the rules are designed to preserve a very specific visual appearance across the estate. Developers want the neighborhood to look tidy and uniform, particularly while they are still selling remaining plots. A street filled with identical driveways and carefully maintained lawns can help create the image of an idealized suburban community. But this is where problems begin to emerge. Some covenants include wording that prohibits the parking of commercial vehicles, sign-written vans, caravans, or large work vehicles if they might create what is described as a visual nuisance. That phrase might sound vague, but in legal terms it can be powerful. For a tradesperson who relies on a van for their job, it means the very tool of their trade could technically violate the conditions attached to their own property. And because these rules are often buried deep within lengthy legal documents, many buyers are unaware they exist until the issue is raised. In theory, the buyer's conveyancing solicitor should highlight these clauses during the purchase process. But in practice, property transactions often move quickly. Buyers are handed large bundles of paperwork filled with legal terminology, and many simply sign the documents assuming everything is standard. Only later do they realize that the small print contains obligations they never fully understood. Another key factor in these disputes is the role of estate management companies. On many modern developments, especially those built in the last 2 decades, communal areas such as green spaces, roads, or drainage systems are managed privately rather than by local councils. Developers appoint management firms to maintain these areas and collect annual fees from residents. These companies also tend to hold the legal power to enforce restrictive covenants written into the property deeds. In other words, if a covenant bans commercial vehicles on driveways, the management company may have the authority to issue warnings or seek legal enforcement. Often the situation begins with a complaint. Sometimes another resident raises concerns about a van being parked on a driveway. In other cases, the management company itself carries out inspections of the estate. Once a potential breach is identified, the homeowner may receive a letter asking them to correct the issue. Most disputes end at this stage. Many residents simply move the vehicle elsewhere to avoid further problems. But occasionally the conflict escalates. If a homeowner refuses to comply, the management company may attempt to enforce the covenant through the courts. In English property law, restrictive covenants can be legally binding agreements tied to the land itself rather than to a specific owner. That means they can remain enforceable long after the property has changed hands. If a court decides the covenant is valid and has been breached, it can issue an injunction ordering the homeowner to comply. In some cases, legal costs may also be awarded against the losing party, which can turn a dispute over a driveway into a costly legal battle. It's a situation that has sparked growing criticism from housing campaigners. Many argue that modern housing developments have created what some call freehold arrangements, where homeowners technically own their property, but still face private charges, regulations, and enforcement actions from management companies. Critics say the system lacks transparency and can place ordinary residents in difficult positions. Supporters of restrictive covenants, however, argue that they serve a legitimate purpose. They claim the rules help maintain the appearance and value of housing estates, preventing situations where properties become cluttered with commercial vehicles or equipment that might deter future buyers. The debate highlights a wider issue within the UK housing market: the balance between private property rights and collective community standards. For homeowners, the lesson is clear. Buying a property involves more than simply viewing the house and securing a mortgage. The legal framework attached to the land itself can shape what you are allowed to do long after the purchase is complete. Experts often advise buyers to examine title documents carefully and ask direct questions during the conveyancing process. Understanding whether restrictive covenants exist and who has the authority to enforce them can prevent unpleasant surprises later on. And for existing homeowners who discover these clauses after moving in, the options can vary. In some circumstances, covenants may become unenforceable if they have been ignored for long periods or if the original purpose no longer applies. In other cases, legal mechanisms exist to modify or remove them through specialized property tribunals. However, these processes can be complex and often require professional legal advice. What's clear is that the issue is becoming more visible as modern housing estates continue to expand across the country. As thousands of new homes are built each year, the legal structures surrounding them are increasingly coming under scrutiny. For many tradespeople and small business owners, the question remains simple but important: if you buy a freehold house, how much control should you really have over your own driveway? It's a question that sits at the heart of the broader debate about housing rights, estate management, and the future of Britain's property market. And it's one we'll continue to follow closely here on Property Report UK. If you found today's report useful, make sure you subscribe to Property Report UK for clear, independent coverage of the stories shaping Britain's housing market. We break down complex property issues, explain the policies affecting homeowners, and provide regular updates on market trends across the UK. Don't forget to like the video if you found this analysis helpful, and share it with anyone considering buying a new build property or navigating the modern housing market. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next Property Report UK update.